Hi, and welcome to Mrs. Long's video lesson on figurative devices and errors. This is the first of several lessons on this topic. We've divided the videos up into sections, and so the beginning of each video will include this information just to remind you that when we're learning about these devices, there are several things that you should be able to do at the end of each module. So you should be able to give the definition of each device if you're given the device. If you're given the definition, you should be able to name the device. Those are the basics. Then the more advanced part of this section is to be able to recognize the device when it's used in context. And a lot of the texts that we'll be studying in this section are visual texts. A lot of them are cartoons because many of these devices are based on humor. And then once you are able to recognize the device when used in context, you're also going to be required to explain the effect of the device in the context. Now, what this video does is it goes through each device. It takes you through an example that we'll do together. And then there is an example where you can pause the video and give yourself a minute or two to think of the answer, and then you can see if you are right. So this video is going to be focusing on devices where there are two possible interpretations, namely on puns and ambiguity. So let's look at puns first. You'll see here we have an example of a pun used in a cartoon. I'm a huge metal fan, says the metal fan. Me too, says the man. Now, most of us, without even understanding puns, will have a little giggle at this cartoon because it's funny. We inherently understand that it's funny. What this section of work aims to do is to help you actually understand how that humor is created. So a pun is a play on similar sounding words that have different meanings. So in order to explain a pun in context, you need to identify the word or the words or sometimes the phrase being punned. In other words, which words have two different meanings and in the context can be interpreted in two different ways. And then you need to explain both of those interpretations. Okay. So here the pun is on the words metal fan. The first interpretation is obviously the little image on the left is he's literally a metal object that blows air. He's a metal fan. That's the literal interpretation. And then the gentleman on the right is a person who is a fan. In other words, he's an enthusiast of the heavy metal genre of music. So here in our explanation, we've got the two different explanations of the word metal and the two different explanations of the word fan, which then helps us understand the pun on the word metal, the words metal fan. Okay, so here is your example. You may wish to pause the video at this point and give yourself a moment to take it in and go through the process. Okay, I'm just going to talk through it, so if you want a moment, you need to pause. So here we have three little gentlemen or characters, I'm not exactly sure what they are. And the cartoon tells us the past, the present, and the future walked into a bar. It was tense. Right, so why is this funny? Why is it a pun? Because obviously the word tense can have two different meanings in this context. So the past, present, and future are characters in the cartoon, but they indicate the different forms of a verb that indicates time, if something happened before, if it's happening now, if it's going to happen in the future. And then the second use of the word, it was tense, obviously refers to the atmosphere or the mood of tension and anxiety in the room. Okay, so that is the section on puns. Remember, when a word can have two different interpretations in the context, and it's usually used to create humor. The second aspect of this video is looking at ambiguity. Now, ambiguity is when something has two interpretations. It's usually unintended, and it can often be a result of incorrect grammar or punctuation. So here in our example, we've got the phrase or the statement, the chicken is ready to eat. Okay, and the cartoonist has illustrated the possible ambiguity of the statement by including a picture of an actual chicken ready to consume a meal. Okay. So ambiguity, as I said, it's a statement that is vague and has two possible interpretations. So what you need to do when you're explaining ambiguity is you've got to identify the ambiguous element, the word or the phrase, the portion of whatever example you're dealing with that has two interpretations, and then you need to explain both of those interpretations. So in this example, the ambiguity rests in the phrase the chicken is ready to eat. Okay, and the first interpretation is that the chicken is literally ready to eat his meal. Okay, and he's got his knife and fork ready, or the meal, which is chicken, is ready to be eaten. Okay, so the chicken is cooked and ready to eat. Obviously, the second interpretation is the more common use of the phrase, the chicken's ready to eat. But you can see how the ambiguity could be created there. So again, we have another example for you. If my slideshow would click through. Oops. Go back. You can pause the video at this point and see if you can work through the example on your own. So the little boy is at Career Week and he's saying, I want to be the guitarist for Iggy and the Stooges, that's a band, like my dad. And so the teacher says, your dad is Iggy Pop's guitarist? And the little boy says, no, he wants to be. Okay, again, without having an understanding of ambiguity, you'll probably have a little giggle at this cartoon, but now you can explain why. Well, why? Because the ambiguity is on the phrase, like my dad. So the boy is saying that the boy's father is the guitarist for Iggy and the Stooges and he wants to be like him. That's the first interpretation. That's how the teacher interprets it. But what the boy means is he wants to be the guitarist for Iggy and the Stooges, and his dad also wants to do this. Okay. So you can see how the ambiguity is created there. Right, so that is it for this section on devices where there are two possible interpretations. And the next section is on the different literal and figurative interpretations, which can be seen in the next video.